There's a quiet truth that doesn't get talked about enough. Sexual health is part of whole body health, no matter your age. After 60, many people feel like they have to leave that part of life behind. Some do it out of physical discomfort, some out of shame, others because they believe desire has an expiration date. But the body doesn't stop needing connection just because the calendar changes. Today, we're going to explore what actually happens when sexual intimacy disappears completely in older age, from a medical and emotional point of view. Because this isn't about pressure, this isn't about performance, it's about staying alive in your body, your mind, and your spirit. Let's talk about the surprising ways sexual inactivity can affect your health and what you can do instead to stay connected, alive, and well. Section 1: Lower blood circulation and stiffness. Sexual activity in any form increases blood flow throughout the body. It's like light cardiovascular exercise. When it stops completely, blood vessels become less flexible, circulation slows, and stiffness sets in. But what exactly does this mean for someone in their 60s, 70s, or beyond? As we grow older, our cardiovascular system naturally becomes less efficient. Arteries harden, blood vessels lose elasticity, and blood moves more slowly. These changes are normal, but they can be worsened by physical inactivity, stress, poor diet, and, yes, a lack of intimate connection. Sexual activity stimulates blood flow in the pelvic area, to the skin, to the brain, and throughout the extremities. This promotes better oxygenation, faster healing, and better delivery of nutrients to every organ system. When that stimulation disappears completely, the following symptoms often emerge, but are rarely connected to sexual inactivity: chronic cold hands and feet, even in warm weather; tingling or numbness in fingers or toes; increased stiffness in joints, especially in the morning; difficulty walking or standing for long periods without aching; slower healing of bruises, cuts, and injuries. Many people think joint stiffness comes only from aging bones, but circulation plays a huge role in joint lubrication and mobility. Sexual activity can stimulate the parasympathetic nervous system, which helps the body shift into a relaxed, healing state. This improves circulation to the joints, flushing out inflammation, and bringing in fresh, oxygen-rich blood to cartilage and connective tissue. Without that movement and stimulation, joints become drier, less cushioned, and more inflamed. You may feel old not because of age, but because your circulation is slowing in ways you can still influence. Sexual activity, even kissing, hugging, or sensual touch, offers similar benefits to low-impact exercise like walking or gentle stretching. It raises the heart rate, improves vascular tone, and helps prevent blood clots by encouraging healthy blood flow. One 10-minute session of physical intimacy has been shown to improve vascular flexibility in older adults. That's more than some medications can claim. When intimacy disappears completely, the heart becomes more vulnerable to stiffness, fatigue, and irregular blood pressure patterns. And this isn't about intense sexual activity. Just gentle, joyful connection can keep your heart more engaged and your blood vessels more resilient. You don't need a partner to keep your circulation healthy through intimacy. Here are some powerful, heartwarming practices you can begin on your own. Self-massage, using warm oils like sesame or coconut. Gently massage your arms, legs, and abdomen in circular motions. This improves circulation and reduces inflammation. Gentle movement with breath, practices like Tai Chi, restorative yoga, or walking meditation combine mindful movement and breath work, stimulating blood flow and inner connection. Warm touch with loved ones. Hugs, hand-holding, or shared laughter can release oxytocin and improve circulation without any sexual activity at all. Mindful self-connection. Even non-sexual self-touch with intention and presence can awaken the body's systems. We often underestimate how much our emotional and physical systems rely on one another. When connection fades, so does circulation. When circulation fades, we begin to feel stuck, physically, emotionally, and energetically. Bringing intimacy back into your life doesn't have to be loud or public. It can be quiet, sacred, personal, but it must be intentional. Because circulation is more than blood flow, it's life force. And you deserve to feel alive, fully, freely, and with flow, no matter your age. Let this be a reminder: your body is still capable of vitality, your heart is still capable of passion, and your blood still longs to move freely through a life filled with gentle pleasure and presence. Even the smallest moments of warmth and closeness can keep your heart soft, your joints fluid, and your spirit nourished. You are not frozen by time. You are still moving, still circulating, still becoming. Section 2: Mood, Stress, and Hormonal Balance. Sexual intimacy isn't just about physical pleasure. It's deeply linked to our emotional well being, our sense of connection, and the chemistry that runs through our bodies every single day. After 60, many people experience unexpected emotional shifts: irritability, anxiety, sadness, a sense of numbness or isolation. And often they don't connect those feelings to a lack of physical affection or closeness. But science does. Sexual activity, whether full intercourse or simple affectionate touch, stimulates the release of several important hormones. Oxytocin, the bonding hormone, which fosters closeness, trust, and emotional connection. Dopamine, linked to motivation, pleasure, and emotional drive. Endorphins, natural pain relievers and mood boosters. Testosterone and estrogen, even in small amounts, these help maintain bone density, mood stability, and sexual function. Without regular activation of these hormones, especially oxytocin and endorphins, the body slowly slips into a state of low-grade stress. That's when you start feeling easily overwhelmed, less joy from things that once brought pleasure, more reactive or defensive, numb, flat, or disconnected from your own emotions. Cortisol is the body's primary stress hormone. It's meant to help us deal with short-term threats. But in modern life, and especially in older adulthood, cortisol levels can remain elevated due to loneliness, inactivity, or emotional isolation. Sexual connection naturally reduces cortisol. Just one episode of affectionate touch, like a long hug or gentle massage, has been shown to lower cortisol and promote a sense of calm. Without that relief, cortisol stays high, and that leads to increased belly fat, trouble sleeping, memory lapses, mood swings, weakened immunity. Benefits of intimacy. After 60, people often assume that emotional needs decrease with age, but the truth is, emotional needs shift, they deepen. After 60, we need more meaningful connection, not just casual conversation. Physical affection that says, I see you, you matter. Opportunities to give and receive love in nonverbal, intimate ways. When these needs go unmet, emotional weariness begins to take hold. It's not always depression, it's a kind of quiet erosion, a soft sadness that lingers beneath the surface. And that sadness isn't weakness, it's the body asking for connection. What if you don't have a partner? Emotional and hormonal benefits are still possible, even outside traditional intimacy. Try this: daily self connection. Place your hand over your heart each morning and simply breathe. Say to yourself, I am here, I care for you. Meaningful touch with others. A hand squeeze, a long embrace, a shared laugh can trigger oxytocin just as effectively as sex. Soothing rituals. A warm bath, candlelight, slow music, or self massage can calm your nervous system and restore hormonal balance. Creative intimacy. Dancing, writing, painting, activities that put you in flow and connection with your inner world can release dopamine and endorphins. Intimacy isn't just physical, it's a way of being with yourself and others. It's choosing to remain open, to let yourself be known, to allow vulnerability, even when life has made you guarded. And when you do, your body listens, your hormones shift, your nervous system softens, and you start to feel like yourself again. Sexual energy is not just about sex, it's about aliveness. When intimacy disappears completely, the spirit often follows, slowly, silently, softly. But when you bring it back, even in the smallest ways, you restore more than hormones. You restore hope, you restore balance, you restore joy, and that joy is yours to reclaim, fully, freely, at any age. You are not too old to feel, you are not too late to reconnect, and your emotions still deserve to be nourished deeply and daily. Section 3: Cognitive Decline and Memory Fog. The human brain thrives on stimulation, novelty, and connection. And while most people associate intimacy with physical health, very few realize how profoundly it impacts the brain, especially in older age. When sexual activity, affectionate touch, or emotional intimacy fade from daily life, it's not just the body that changes. The brain does too. How intimacy stimulates the brain? Sexual and emotional connection, even in gentle, non sexual forms, activate key areas of the brain responsible for memory, focus, emotion regulation, and creative thinking. Here's how: dopamine release during intimacy boosts motivation and alertness. Oxytocin promotes feelings of safety, reducing overactivity in the brain's fear centers. Physical closeness triggers sensory pathways that enhance cognition and reduce mental fatigue. Endorphins help relieve stress and stabilize mood, right, which improves learning and memory retention. Studies using brain scans have shown that older adults who maintain intimate relationships or regular affectionate interactions show more active prefrontal cortex function, the part of the brain responsible for memory, attention, and decision making. Without this stimulation, some seniors begin to notice subtle but distressing mental changes. More difficulty remembering names or recent conversations, trouble focusing or finishing tasks, a feeling of mental fog or fatigue, especially in the morning, less curiosity or desire to try new things, emotional flatness or a loss of imaginative thinking. These are often dismissed as just getting older, but in many cases, they are also signs of understimulated neural pathways. Why sexual energy matters for the brain. Sexual energy, whether it's expressed physically or emotionally, sparks neural firing patterns that keep the brain alive. Think of it like mental aerobics. Eye contact with a loved one boosts oxytocin and sharpens empathy. Kissing or hugging increases blood flow to the brain and elevates mood. Shared laughter or intimate conversation builds cognitive flexibility and social memory. Even if you're not sexually active in the traditional sense, acts of loving connection are medicine for the mind. A 2016 study published in Age and Aging showed that older adults who reported being sexually active scored significantly higher on memory tests and verbal fluency exercises than those who weren't. Another study found that the frequency of affectionate interaction, not just intercourse, predicted better working memory and emotional stability in men and women over 65. Why? Because human connection strengthens neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to adapt, grow, and repair. When that connection is missing, neurons fire less often, cognitive resilience weakens, and memory begins to fade. What you can do if you're feeling foggy. You don't need a partner to support brain health through connection. Daily social contact. A brief phone call, a walk with a neighbor, or a video chat can spark mental clarity. Gentle physical touch, petting a dog, massaging your own hands or feet, or using textured fabrics can stimulate sensory nerves linked to cognition. Mental intimacy, reading poetry aloud, writing letters to loved ones, or reflecting on past memories can enhance brain function and lift mood. Creative engagement, music, painting, gardening, all forms of connection with beauty stimulate the hippocampus, which controls memory and learning. If single or widowed, if you're single or widowed, don't assume this section doesn't apply to you. Simply acknowledging your own aliveness, desire, and emotional depth helps re-engage your prefrontal cortex. The act of tuning into your senses, breath, sensation, emotion, is enough to awaken dormant brain patterns. This can be done through mindful body scans, slow, intentional movement, self-touch with loving awareness, journaling about emotional experiences or desires. Your brain is not meant to fade quietly into the background of life. It is still hungry for joy, for intimacy, for stimulation. And you don't need to be in a relationship to give your brain what it needs. You just need to stay connected to your senses, your emotions, your stories. Because a nourished mind is not just about memory, it's about presence, it's about imagination, and it's about continuing to grow no matter your age. Even a simple hug, a deep conversation, or the whisper of affection in your heart can be enough to wake up the neurons within you. Section 4, Self-Worth and Body Image. Aging changes the body, wrinkles deepen, muscles soften, hormones shift, and for many, these physical transformations begin to quietly affect something much deeper, how we feel about ourselves. When sexual activity fades, whether due to health, loss, or shame, it often leaves behind a silent message: I'm not desirable anymore. And that message, it's not just painful, it's untrue. How the absence of intimacy affects identity. Sexuality is not just about pleasure, it's about identity. It's about the feeling of being seen, being chosen, being held. When intimacy disappears, many older adults begin to internalize false beliefs. I'm too old to be loved this way. My body isn't attractive anymore. I'm invisible now, even to myself. These thoughts don't just live in the mind. They shape how you carry yourself, how you dress, how you eat, how you speak, how you expect others to treat you. Without care, this becomes a spiral. A loss of intimacy leads to a loss of confidence, which leads to social withdrawal, which reinforces the loneliness. Let's name something few people talk about: Our culture rarely shows aging bodies as beautiful. Magazines, movies, media, they all worship youth. And in that worship, they create a silent narrative that says, you're no longer worthy of touch, desire, or admiration. This narrative is toxic. It seeps into doctor visits, dating conversations, family dynamics, and self talk. It makes you feel embarrassed for still wanting closeness, still feeling desire. But desire isn't a flaw, it's a life force. You are allowed to feel it. You are allowed to want it. You are allowed to reclaim it at any age, in any body. What happens when you don't reclaim it? The absence of body affirming touch and connection can lead to lower self esteem, poor body image and neglect of physical health, increased depressive symptoms, social withdrawal, and shame. Studies show that people who continue to experience touch, affectionate or sensual, in older age report greater confidence, better body image, regardless of weight or appearance, higher motivation to eat well, move often, and care for themselves. Touch reminds you that you are still a human being, not just a patient, a parent, or a pensioner. Even without a partner, there are beautiful ways to reconnect with your own body. Self massage with oil, not as a routine, but as a ritual. Take time to nourish your skin, thank your limbs, soften your gaze toward yourself. Wear clothes that feel good on your skin, not just practical, but pleasurable. Dance or move freely at home, not to perform, but to feel yourself again. Write a love letter to your own body. Thank it for all it's carried, held, endured. You may be surprised by what awakens inside you when you stop criticizing and start honoring the body that's walked you through so much. It doesn't have to be sexual, it can be a moment of being held, of someone placing their hand on your back as you speak, of a lingering hug. These moments say, you are still lovable, you are still worthy. And those reminders can be life changing. Aging doesn't make you less human, it makes you more human, softer, wiser, fuller. Your body is not past its prime. It is becoming something sacred, a vessel of stories, of wisdom, of grace. You do not need to look like your younger self to be beautiful. You do not need to perform to be desired. You do not need to be touched to know you are touchable. But when you are, by your own hands or another's, may it remind you, you are still radiant. You are still deserving. And your worth has never been up for debate. Let intimacy begin again, not with someone else, but with yourself. Because the relationship with your body is the first one worth healing, and it's never, ever too late to begin. Section 5, Immune Function and Longevity. Most people don't associate intimacy with immunity, but the truth is your body's ability to fight disease, reduce inflammation, and recover from illness is deeply tied to emotional connection, hormonal balance, and yes, even sexual activity. As we age, our immune systems naturally weaken. This is called immunosenescence, the gradual deterioration of immune function. It means slower wound healing, greater vulnerability to viruses, increased inflammation throughout the body. But what many don't realize is that connection itself is a medicine. And the absence of connection, especially the type found through intimacy, affection, and touch, is quietly stressful to the body. And chronic stress? It's one of the fastest ways to age your cells and suppress immune function. How intimacy boosts the immune system? Let's look at what happens to the body during regular intimacy. Oxytocin increases. This bonding hormone not only strengthens emotional ties, it lowers cortisol, your main stress hormone. Less cortisol means better immune response. Endorphins surge. These natural painkillers also act as immune modulators, helping your body manage inflammation. DHEA rises. Dehydroepiandrosterone, DEA, is an anti-aging hormone that supports brain health, bone density, and immune resilience. Immunoglobulin A, IgA, improves. This antibody is your body's first line of defense in the respiratory and digestive tract, and studies show sexual activity increases its presence. These biochemical changes aren't limited to sexual intercourse. They happen during cuddling, holding hands, loving conversation, massage, and even intimate self-reflection. In one long-term study by Duke University, older adults who reported regular affectionate intimacy in any form had significantly lower all-cause mortality rates than those who did not. Other studies found that seniors who maintained physical closeness had lower rates of chronic illness. Touch and connection reduced the length and severity of colds and flus. Married seniors, or those in emotionally close relationships, lived on average 2 to 5 years longer than socially isolated peers. The reason isn't just emotional. It's physiological. Human connection literally boosts white blood cell count and helps regulate immune signaling pathways. Chronic inflammation is at the root of many age related illnesses: arthritis, heart disease, dementia, even some cancers. Emotional disconnection and loneliness increase systemic inflammation. But intimacy, particularly safe, loving touch, signals to the nervous system you are safe. That signal reduces inflammatory markers in the bloodstream and tells the immune system it doesn't need to stay on high alert. Your immune system is like a watchful animal. If it never feels safe, it stays reactive. But when it feels closeness, warmth, presence, it settles, it heals. What if you live alone or are widowed? You don't need a partner to reap the immune benefits of intimacy. Daily touch rituals. Apply lotion to your body with presence and gratitude. Light a candle and turn this into an act of devotion. Emotional honesty. Journal each night with tenderness. Express your inner world with kindness. Spiritual connection. Prayer, meditation, or time in nature taps into the same hormonal pathways as relational intimacy. Caring community. Joining support groups, volunteering, or attending small gatherings provides emotional closeness that stimulates immune health. True longevity isn't just about living longer, it's about living with vibrancy. When you bring softness into your daily life, when you let someone see you, or when you see yourself with compassion, your immune system responds. It relaxes, it recovers, it defends you with more wisdom and less inflammation. Your body does not heal best through isolation, it heals through connection. You don't need youth to be healthy. You don't need sex to be whole, but you do need warmth. You do need closeness. You do need presence with yourself, with others, with the world. And every time you allow intimacy back into your life in any form, you aren't just feeding your heart, you're extending your life. You're fortifying your immunity, and you're giving your body the quiet signal it's been longing to hear. You're safe, you're seen, you're still alive. If you've made it to this point in the video, I want you to know something deeply important. You are not broken. You are not past your prime, and you are not invisible. What you're feeling, the quiet longing for connection, for closeness, for recognition, is not a weakness. It's a strength. It means your heart still works. It means your spirit still listens. It means your body still remembers what it feels like to be fully alive. Intimacy is not reserved for the young. It is not limited by appearance or performance. It is a language of presence, of touch, of eye contact, of gentle care, and you still speak that language. You always have. So whether you are partnered or alone, whether you've been distant from touch or are rediscovering it again, know this: healing can begin at any age. You can reclaim your voice. You can reconnect with your body. You can rediscover joy in ways that feel safe, beautiful, and sacred to you. And you deserve it, not because you've earned it, but because you've always been worthy of it. Let this be your gentle invitation to soften, to reach, to allow, to feel again.